Hello everyone and welcome to the Creative Noeland podcast. On this episode, I'm joined by artist Sophie Rose Walters. Sophie has a really defined style that is heavily influenced by traditional Japanese art and the stories of Geisha culture. Obsessed with art and creativity from a young age, Sophie talks us through her journey of exploring and experimenting to define that style. Diving deep into the research process and inspiration behind her work, and the need to be as respectful to the culture as possible, while still infusing each piece of work with her own recognizable style. On the lead up to the podcast, Sophie told me that it's a mad thing being an artist. Well, we talk about all of that. The frustrations of being an artist, balancing a full-time job with your art, the emotional attachment we have to our work, dealing with creative blocks and how to come out the other side. And most importantly, how as artists and creatives, we have to be braver and more proactive and not to take no as a setback. I've put the links to all of Sophie's work in the show notes for you to check out while you're listening to the podcast. Sophie is a force of positive motivational energy and has a real passion to succeed. So I hope you enjoy listening to her story. Let's get into it. Okay, so Sophie, thanks for coming on the Creative Noeland podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's my absolute pleasure. I'm going to jump in with a bit of a question. Do you think it's important for artists to niche down into a specific style?
I think it's important when it comes to like social media and stuff. If you're scrolling down someone's page and they've got different types of artwork and stuff, you're going to be like, hang on, are these people just collecting artwork or is that their style? Because it's like mine. I've had a lot of people going, is that yours? But it's to different ones. Like, is that yours? Is that yours? And it's constant. And I feel like it confuses your clients. I feel like if you do it like on your own accord, I feel like it's fine to have different styles, like mess around, do what you want, but I think when it comes to like looking down someone's Instagram page or something, I think it's important to have the same style going on.
Solely for Instagram, or do you think in terms, like you say, a bit more moving forward in terms of collectors, galleries?
Galleries, website, I think it needs to be the same. I think it needs to, like, people need to get an idea. Because you'll get a lot of collectors going onto your website going, well, I like that, but you've only got one of that. What, you don't have anything similar to that, and I've got 3 in my house rather than you've got 1. But you've got other stuff that you've got multiples of, but I don't want that, I want that.
And I ask that because you do have a very specific style, which we're obviously going to talk about in a lot of detail moving forward, but can you elaborate on your artistic journey? Like, where does that begin for you? Childhood? Kids?
Yeah, childhood. I always used to doodle, used to draw. My mum used to draw with me. My granddad used to always draw with me as well. And I just had a genuine interest in it growing up with just like watching art programs and stuff like that. It's always something that I've really been into. I've never had anything else on my mind but the fact that I've wanted to be creative when I was younger.
And why do you think that is? Who was influencing that?
Well, my dad was a carpenter and he was also a screen printer. My mum was a seamstress and my granddad was an artist. So I was around a lot of creative people growing up. So it was just constant people making things around me. And it was very, growing up as a child, you take it for granted and you just think like, oh, those are my parents' jobs, that's what my parents do. But as I got older and I got more into it, I realised how cool it was and like how much I wanted to follow in their footsteps and everything that they do. It's just amazing. My mum's a self-taught seamstress and she taught herself when she was 13. I think that's amazing, incredible how someone can make clothes and design their own patterns for clothes. That's like uni level of pattern making, and my mum didn't even go to university, she just taught herself, and my dad taught himself like how to do carpentry and stuff. I think that's amazing. It blows my mind.
And your grandfather was an artist. Was that on your mum's side, your dad's side?
Mum's side.
So she obviously got that creative from him. What sort of art did your granddad do?
He used to do pen sketches, actually.
Well, well, there you go. Who influences your style, Sophie? Right, okay. Well, anyone who's looked at Sophie's style will obviously understand why we're laughing. That's very interesting. So your grandfather did pen sketches, which is obviously now looking at your work had a massive impact on your style. What were your thoughts though? Did you know you wanted to be a creative? Did you know you wanted to go into the arts? Did you have a plan?
I didn't have a plan at all with it. It was just something that I was very passionate about. And I feel like with kids growing up, I feel like a lot can be a phase. Like, that you want to be a vet or you want to be a doctor, and it lasts for a few years and you're like, this is what I really want to do. And then it just disappears. And it happens quite a lot. But like with the creative side of things, it was always such a passion. And as I got older, it just grew and my love for it grew. And I just wanted to go to more museums. I just wanted my whole world to be filled with it. And I just had nothing but like love for it. And it just really warms my heart going to like a gallery and seeing different artists and like being around them. I find so much joy with being around artists and talking about each other's practice. I just think it's great.
And did your parents and grandfather, did they encourage you down this route, or were they sort of still thinking, oh, maybe you sort of need that safety?
Yeah. Or my mum and dad weren't very pushy with like, you need to do well in school or anything. They very much encouraged to draw and just to be happy in yourself, because I feel like that is something where when I was growing up, it was very much like you need to get a proper job. You can't be drawing and doing stuff like that. You need to do well in education and stuff. My granddad always used to encourage. My granddad knew how well I could draw, and it was pushed on me to get better and to do it better. And my granddad would set me targets every day. He'd be like, draw the radio today, draw this. But we'd draw in pen and we'd sketch it in pen. And I never use pencils before I draw. I always go straight to pen. And I feel like I have a lot of confidence with using pen. And people always say to me like, aren't you scared that you'll mess up? Well, that's how you develop your style. I scribble a lot. Most of the lines are scribbled. If I do mess up, you can always work it out with the pen. It's never been a thing to me to be like, oh, what about if I mess up? Because I was taught to draw straight on the paper in pen, never pencil. I don't like drawing in pencil either. I feel really weird using pencil.
That's quite unusual, isn't it? Like, to go straight onto a blank page with pen that obviously, like you say, if you make a mistake, you've got to either repair that mistake or start afresh.
Yeah, it was almost like I was brainwashed at the fact that you're not going to mess up here. And whenever I do it now, I know I'm not going to mess up. My work is either quite clean or quite sketchy, and I feel like the sketchy part of it is the bit that if you do make a mistake, you can always turn it into something else. And I believe now I'm 27, I've got the raw confidence to use a pen, and I just love using it and love how you can manipulate a scribble. You can turn it into anything. I feel like I've got confidence there with it, but I feel like my granddad pushed it.
And it's great to have those people that are pushing that creative endeavour and also not putting any of that pressure on you, going, you've got to find this job, you've got to find that job.
Mm-hmm.
So what does school look like for you? I know this is probably a bit cliched and everyone's going, you always talk about the artist journey, but I think it's important. What's your journey in schooling like, the conventional school system? Presumably you excelled at art.
Yeah, I did. Well, throughout school, I wasn't that great, academically. I was really good at English. I think that's just the creative mindset, though. I feel like your mind is racing constantly.
Did you read when you were a kid? Were you a reader?
I read quite a bit, yeah, but I was more into creative writing. But I wasn't good academically at all, and I just knew that it wasn't for me. And I knew at a very young age as well that it wasn't for me. And it was like people would force maths on you and be like, no, you need to come to after school club because you're not good at it. And I was just like, no. This genuinely, I have nothing in my head that makes me, I just didn't want to do it. I just wanted to go home and draw, and it was just I just wanted to be creative in that sense. Like, and growing up now, I've realised that you really, really don't need any of like that stuff. You do.
Yeah, I suppose we should put a caveat in that. Some basic maths and English is always helpful. Sophie's not encouraging everyone just to, like,
don't drop maths, kids.
Don't do drugs. Don't drop maths. But I understand what you're saying. All the other stuff that goes inherently with schooling, apart from the maths and English, which it is going to be useful in your life. To be able to read, to be able to write, to be able to do with it. Don't worry, we can edit this bit out, so it's fine. We're not advocating for people to drop out of school just yet and just doodle. But I understand what you're saying. It's like you don't need a lot of the other stuff.
Yeah.
And
I was learning stuff in school that I just thought I didn't really. Sounds really bad, but I didn't really care about it. I just literally wanted to be creative, and I used to do textiles and art in school. It's all I wanted to do. It's the classes that I'd run for. It's not like I just read everything else.
And when you're going through the school system, you're obviously gravitating to the more creative subjects. Are you thinking at this point what you're going to do when you leave school? What you do? Are you doing A-levels? Are you?
I never put pressure on myself. Oh my God, what am I going to do when I leave school? I always just thought to myself, I just want to be happy in that sense, and I want to just, if I get a full-time job and I'm doing art on the side, then I'm happy, which is what I'm doing now.
I'm just trying to establish whether there was any sort of real plan to gear everything towards being a creative or being up, but it sounds like it was just part of your lifestyle. It was just like, I do this and...
Well, my mum used to do art classes with me, and we used to paint together and we used to draw together. My granddad used to join in with us, and my dad used to, I used to be with my dad in his woodshed, and he'd be making chessboard by hand and varnishing, and that's how I got into doing wood stuff as well. And I was just I just love being practical. There's so much more to life and education than...
No, and I agree. I think it sounds like that creative practice was just instilled with you. That way of being is just like, I am just a creative and that's just part of my life. How that infuses into a job or whatever, it's not important.
You lose yourself within doing those kind of practical things. Like, you could be in a woodshed with your dad for hours and you could lose track of time, and you've created this beautiful piece by the end of it. And it always used to go to bed thinking about today, how did my dad actually do that, and how can I do that, and how can I make that better? And my dad started making furniture, and then he'd say to me I want you to draw something on it. So then we started doing that. We started making jewellery boxes, and I started drawing on top of the jewellery boxes. And but then I'd do it the first time, and be that looks really bad. What can I do better the next time? And then yeah.
What sort of things were you drawing on at this point?
Just flowers and stuff, and little rose petals and
decorative
stuff. Yeah, just making them look simplistic kind of things to make the furniture stand out and stuff. But it was only my dad just wanted to see what I could do. My dad they always used to push me with it, not in a bad way or a pressure way. They just used to push me and see what you can do with that and see if you can do it better next time. But I was always thinking that myself, what can I do better? And then I got a commission a few years ago, and they wanted me to make 3 boxes, and they were only small pen boxes, and I knew from when I was practicing with my dad's stuff what pens to use straight away, what type of varnish I should use, and that's from messing around when I was younger. So these skills weren't wasted on me. I knew exactly what to do as soon as I got the commission. I think I finished the commission within 3 days, and they were very surprised that I'd finished it that quick, but I just knew. Mm-hmm. And it made me feel really good that I'd listened and I'd used my own initiative to do these boxes, and they were great. And I think they sold really quickly as well, which was just, it pushes you. It's like music to your ears as soon as you've done something really well.
Yeah, and gaining those skill sets early on, I think, is important for you. With such your mother seamstress, father screen printer and woodworker, and grandfather So at this point, though, you're doing all these things, but would you say you were leaning more, your everyday was probably just sketching, drawing?
Sketching and drawing, like, I was, like, in art school, you, like, learn to start a sketchbook with doing, like, mood boards, and you do, like, a spider dot at the start, and it's, like, how, like, schools teach you how to do stuff. I was going home, and I was making my own sketchbooks, and I was, like, doing different sketchbooks based on different things. I think I did one, if you go to my house, there's one that was based on the ocean. And everything was just to do with the ocean in this book, nothing else. I was just doing drawings, paintings, whatever. And then another one was based on Alice in Wonderland, and I don't even know, I think it was to do with psychedelic art. I started looking into that when I was getting older. And then I did one based on, and then I'd do a final piece at the end of this whole sketchbook for what I'd put everything together. So I did it to do with Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, Alice in Wonderland, and I created this tangerine dream kind of river. And it had, like, Alice in Wonderland acid tabs and stuff. And look, but it was all, like, what I'd researched about, like, psychedelic art, the 60s, and then it went into Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, then it went into Alice in Wonderland, and then I just created this final piece of it all, and it was just, think about it, it's a bit mad. Like, if I look,
Is this A level, or is this?
This is me doing it on my own at home, like, not. I'm saying this is how they do it in school.
Okay.
But this is me just going home and doing things and, like, just making big sketchbooks. If you go to my house, there's, like, a big toy box full of sketchbooks where I just used to do my own project at home. It's mad.
I don't think that's mad. I think that's wicked. I think you gravitated towards those creative subjects and just deep dived in your own time to learn skills, practice, do all these sketchbooks.
I mean, I remember four of the pages in this psychedelic project that I did were of tangerines, because in Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, it's like she's going through the tangerine dreams and everything like that. And yeah, it was like 4 pages of how to draw a tangerine. And it was just thinking back, it was literally, I'd just put my head in it and I'd lose myself for hours and I'd just do, random stuff.
Well, it sounds like you found a passion. And would you say you're obsessed with art creativity?
I think so, maybe. I feel like it's like a massive part of my personality.
Yeah, definitely. But you say it like it's a bad thing.
No, not at all. I think it's great.
Yeah.
It's like what I think about every day, and I feel like us as artists, we do wake up in the morning. I'm like, right, what can I do? We go to sleep at night, and every single artist has this. You're drawing and you can't get to sleep because your mind is racing, like, what can I do tomorrow? But you end up getting up as well, and you end up, like, carrying on your piece or whatever. And it happens with every single artist. And it's beautiful. It's great. I mean, it can be frustrating and it can take over sometimes, but I feel like that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that we'll talk about in a bit in the podcast. But I want to talk about, you've got a very defined style now, but it didn't start like that, did it? Obviously now it's very niche and based around Japanese art, which again we're going to talk about in much more detail. But how did we get up to the point where I met you and you were doing lots of sort of iconic figures, the Grace Joneses, the Vivienne Westwoods, these beautiful intricate line drawings of Amy Winehouse, and you collaborated with Neon Cow and they turned one of your drawings into a neon light and all those sorts of... So how did the icon stuff, because you were doing abstract as well?
Yeah, I was doing quite a bit. I was still working out what I actually wanted to do as an artist, which I think is important because, like we said at the start, I feel like you need to have the same sort of style going on because it helps a lot, especially with your clients and stuff. But I was still trying to figure things out. But I think me as an artist, I didn't really want to make a career out of it when I first started out. I think I was just doing it for fun. So I was literally drawing anything and everything that I fancied. Like, I'd get an idea. And
were you sharing this sort of stuff? Was this you say you're doing it just for fun, but were you putting it out there for the world? Did you have the social media account? What did it look like?
Some stuff I was sharing, some stuff I was just keeping to myself, because, like I said, I was just doing it for fun. And at this point, I weren't really, like, thinking about selling it or whatever. It was more just doing it for fun and just seeing what, like, suits my style and stuff.
And what were you finding? What were you enjoying? What were you leaning towards? Were you leaning towards more the portraiture style stuff?
I was leaning more towards it, but then I was hitting a wall with it. And even though there's like so many people in the world you can draw, I was just hitting a wall with it. I was just like, this isn't me. This isn't what I want. And then I'd move on to something else. And then I'd like, end up, this isn't what. I feel like my head was exploding with ideas. And every time I did something differently, that idea of doing something differently would stem onto something else. And I'd add a bit of paint. And then I started painting. And I was just like me adding like a line of paint to something. I was like, oh, okay, I like paint now. So then I'd like buy a load of paint. And it was very much, I just wanted to do something. Right? And I get itches with it, and I don't get bored of it. I just get really like, I need to do something else constantly. I just want to experiment with different things. I think it's nice to experiment with different things and show what you can do. And also when you're putting it out there, doing different things, you can kind of realise and understand what gets more exposure, what people like more, what suits you more, what do you get more feedback from. And I got a lot of feedback with my pen. And I was like, this is the stuff that I've always done, the pen. I was like, right, okay, this is what I'm good at.
So you're sort of doing market research on your own art by just like filtering a little bit here and there into the market, but you're not considering yourself as a artist. I mean, obviously in your free time, yeah, but not like in inverted commas, the statement title, I am an artist as such. You're just sharing bits and seeing what's working, right?
Yeah, but I've always done the Japanese artwork. I've literally always been obsessed with doing it and always had an interest for it. And I noticed that I was like doing a little bit of it and then I'd get so much exposure for it and then I'd move on to something else really quickly because my brain couldn't and I had to do something else. And then my exposure would go down, my likes would go down. I'd get less feedback and so, and then I'd go back to it again. I'd get loads again, and then it was constantly up and down.
Because when we first started chatting and stuff, you actually, I think you put out something on your social media about like you wanted some ideas about people to photo. You wanted some ideas about people to paint or draw.
Yeah.
And I suggested one, and we just started chatting, and he went on to do it. I won't take any credit for it, but the Grace Jones was pretty fantastic, I must say. But that's what I mean. I didn't really. So you've always had an affinity with the Japanese culture, but then what was it that sort of made you? Well, because I suppose we should say, I mean, I hope that people have gone and looked at your work through the introduction and the suggestions on the social media and stuff, but people obviously, it's Japanese-inspired, beautiful Japanese-inspired artwork, mixed media, paintings, line drawings, but with a focus on geisha art. But how did you go from, or was there a trigger? What was the thing that made you go from drawing lots of icons, as I say, from the Amy Winehouses, doing collaboration projects, Vivienne Westwood, I even saw like some Tupac and some wicked, really amazing images. But what was the thing? And I think I'll go back to my first question about, do you think it's important to niche down on a style? What was the thing that made you sort of put those a bit to one side, still same skill set, but really niche down on the Japanese influenced art?
Oh, it was like realising how well it got exposure when I did it, but also it was another passion of mine as well as the creativity perspective. I was totally obsessed with it growing up, like anime. I used to read about it quite a bit. I used to have like an atlas book and I used to like keep a folded page on Japan. I used to look at where I was going to go one day, and it was another obsession of mine where I just didn't leave my head.
I mean, yeah, I can see you've got that obsessive personality, which I think is cool. You've got your obsessive sketchbooks and your things. But why Japan?
I just think it's a very beautiful place. It's a very peaceful place. The main thing for me was the geishas. And because my mum was the seamstress, I used to go to fabric shops with her when I was younger, and I used to look at all the silk. And I was absolutely obsessed with how beautiful this silk was. And a lot of it was like quite oriental styles. And I used to ask, because you could ask if you could have like swatches and stuff. And I used to ask them if I could take it home and stuff. And I just used to look at it. And I was absolutely like infatuated with how beautiful this material was.
Your mum's a seamstress. You see these beautiful fabrics, and that leads you down this presumably, again, obsessive route of researching Japan and geishas and Japanese artwork and things like that.
Well, you asked me how I'd come to that as well, and all the geisha drawings that I started doing were mixed media. But if you actually go through all my work that was market researching, all my Grace Jones and my Amy Winehouse paintings were actually done with heavy body acrylic, which is what the backgrounds of my work now are made from. So it's heavy body acrylic, which I used when I was doing all my paintings because it was very bold and I knew I wanted a bold, thick background. And then I used pen to outline the geisha and I used line drawing and everything because that's another thing that was part of my skill set.
I was going to ask that. How do you take what is presumably quite a traditional art form of Japanese artwork and geishas, and how do you put the Sophie Rose Walters stamp on that? What makes them different?
Well, obviously they're all based on the old traditional paintings and woodblock of the geishas, but I like bright colours, I like things to stand out, I like boldness, and I wanted to put my spin on it by making them so bold. And I wanted to bring out the femininity of them, so I wanted them to look as beautiful as possible. I feel like I love the old style drawings, but I don't feel like it brings out how feminine these women are. They were always kind of very masculine looking. But if you see geishas in real life compared to this old style drawing, they're very beautiful. They're striking. That is what the men wanted to be with these women because they were so beautiful. So I wanted to make them that beautiful. But also at the same time, I wanted to make them quite comical because if you also look at the old style drawings, they're quite comical and you can tell I've got a piece called The Little Mother of Daiichi, which is a tea house. And there's a little mum in the corner, a little old geisha, and she's smirking. And then there's a taller geisha next to her who's clearly a younger geisha. And she's looking down at her, but this elderly lady's smirking, and I wanted to tell a story with it. They're cheeky, they're crafty, they're older, they don't care. And it's I wanted to show that beauty of the culture. I saw loads of photos and I did a lot of research and the older ones at this point, they're not doing anything anymore. They're not entertaining. They're just living in these geisha districts and stuff. And they're just cheeky and they just don't care. And they're just I find it really it was cute. I wanted to make it really comical and really cute and yeah, it's nice.
And they do. I mean, I think because they're beautiful images. They are very bold and stand out with these vibrant colours. And it's interesting that the acrylic paints and stuff now that you were using previously now act as the background to this. What were these drawings done? Just ink drawings traditionally, ink and woodblock carving prints.
It was woodblock originally. There was a lot of black ink that went into them.
So very muted, not much
going on in them.
So that's what giving you the Sophie Rose impact to these.
Yeah, but like classic me, I have to go over the top. I was using I was making my own graffiti stencils with the flowers. No one knows this, but the flowers that I've got on my work, they're actually graffiti flowers. But then I couldn't stop there. Obviously, I had to put all the lines in them. I need the lines. I need them to come out. I need you to look at every piece of it. Oh my god, that's gorgeous and that's beautiful and that. I just want it to be mad.
Why?
I just think it's great when it's mad. The madder the better.
No, that's really cool, but I just think it's interesting because obviously Japanese culture is quite minimal, right?
Yeah, it's I think there's a fine line between making it mad and not making it too over the top because some of them I have done and I thought, oh my god, that's too much actually. But some of them are absolute. I even look at them still and I feel like I've got to that place in my art career where I'm this is me. This is me now. I've done exactly. I've done the research throughout all the years. And now I just absolutely, I love my work now. I'm comfortable and I feel like I'm at a good stage with it.
But I don't know whether did we ever get down to, apart from the fact that you did some market research on the fact that the Japanese images are doing well. You're clearly very passionate about this style of artwork. But if you go through your Instagram, there is a very distinct, like, right, it just stops and now my style is Japanese art, Japanese geisha art. Was there a trigger? Can you think, right, I've just got to niche down? Hence my first question, you understanding that it's important to niche down into a style.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that's necessarily true for everybody, but you've definitely done that. And through your storytelling and researching all these geisha stories, you're clearly very obsessed with it. But I'm just wondering, was there just a trigger point? Because I think I'm looking for the more romantic story than I did some market research and the Japanese art did really well. I know you're obsessed with it. I can see you're passionate, but I'm just wondering whether there was that one moment, a decision where you went, no, I'm going to focus solely on this now.
I've only been doing it for about 6-7 months now. But because the first piece that I ever did, that was just an experiment. And I did it, and I put it out there, and it's the one that's in Tiger Bites Pig at the moment. It's the orange background with the red moon. And
just for reference, as people hopefully globally listening to this podcast, what's Tiger Bites Pig?
Oh, sorry, Tiger Bites Pig is a restaurant that's in...
Yeah, great.
That's very well known for bar buns, which is really good. Yeah, it was an experiment, and I kind of looked at it, and I kept looking at it once I'd done it. And I just did a bold orange background, and then I did a moon, because I always do moons in every single piece of work. That's a very standard thing to do with Japanese artwork, is have a moon background. And just, it went really well, and it went better than expected. And this was me just messing around one evening, and it went so well. And then it gave me the bug, and I was just like, now I've got to keep doing it. I've got to. It was like, I have to. And I kept doing it. I was producing 3 a week at one point, and I just couldn't stop. And then I was asking to collab with people, because I think it's really important to collab with people. So I got an image off Claire, who's an abstract artist in Birmingham. And then we just started doing stuff from there. And I did a big red moon. I did a big geisha. And I was like, I've got to do it more. And it just, the more I did it, and the more I did different things with it, and then my mind was racing.
I can see it. I mean, I don't think there's necessarily. I mean, that one piece that you did, obviously, it sounds like you just got so involved with it, and you just found a real passion for it.
I really fell in love with it really quick, and it's all I could think about. I'd be at work in the day, and I was like, you know what, I can't wait to go home. And I was getting up in the morning, and I was painting the background. I was like, this is going to be good, because when I get home, it's going to be dry. I can carry on doing what I can do and not anything. It was just great. It was and then again, I thought it was classic me. It's going to be some kind of obsession that's going to fade away soon. And it's been 7 months now, and it hasn't. And I think this is genuinely it. I found my style.
So you finding your style in this area, but it's not just I just like the aesthetic. You do proper research into these stories of some of these geishas and the cultural aspects of Japanese art. And I'm sure they've all got individual stories, but is there a story that stands out to you?
Well, I was reading this book before about geishas, and my first ever piece was called Ichiwimi's Younger Sister. And basically, it was a whole chapter on how there was this geisha who was a level up from an apprentice called Ichiwimi, who looked after this geisha who was an apprentice, and she looked after her for ages, and it was a very beautiful relationship. And geishas never used to when they used to train up other geishas, you couldn't get on with them. There had to be some sort of boundaries between them and everything, because there were different levels.
Like a hierarchy.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful story. I read about it, how they become really good friends. And it's a bit of a sad ending, actually, because there was actually a house fire to do with some cigarettes that the apprentices had been smoking all night, which they weren't supposed to do. And Ichiwimi actually died in the house fire that night. And yeah, it was it kind of stuck with me a lot. And I think I read the chapter twice. And I was this, she had a big effect on this apprentice, and she was really close to her, and she was almost they used to call each other sisters. And yeah.
You got brothers and sisters?
No. I'm an only child.
Oh, okay. So maybe, I mean, I don't want to put words into your mouth, but do you think that story of these close sisters was, not that you're looking at me like I'm deeply psychoanalyzing. It was just me putting two and two together. You're an only
Therapist
child.
moment.
Well, no, just that you being an only child and being so heavily influenced by a story of these two women who weren't sisters, but they had a very close bond.
No, it was nice. It was just like having like a best friend though, really, at the same time. Like finding that person, because this, like, apprentices used to come from all over Japan and they'd go to these geisha districts and they'd be far away from home and they'd decide that on their own accord that they wanted to become geishas. Like, they'd decide that and they'd go away. So you were on your own. You were without your parents. Like, you'd be put into this room and you'd have bunk beds and you'd be with other girls that you probably didn't get on with, or you did get on with. You never know. And, like, most of the girls were quite timid and quite quiet because they were quite scared. But it was also very exciting because you're being taught all this different stuff. But to have someone that you eventually become so close with, I think it's great. It's beautiful, and it was a really nice story. And I've used her quite a bit in some of my titles, and she's kind of stuck with me along this whole journey. And yeah, I think about her quite a lot when I'm doing stuff. And I always think to myself, you can't put her in another title. But like at the same time, she's really stuck with me.
Well, that's a beautiful story, and like you say, I think it emphasises the fact of how well researched you are, because people could be very blasé and just go, oh yeah, this is Japanese style, and it's my style and I've made this geisha up. But you go and you research everyone and their stories, which I think is very commendable, because I don't want to be controversial, but Sophie, you're white, Brummy, with Italian roots. I mean, is there any pushback from people? Why is this white, Brummy Italian girl painting Japanese style art and geishas?
Like, no one actually knows if I know anything about it. It's kind of just seeing it from first glance. Like, oh, this girl is like just taking our culture and just drawing it and just doing whatever she wants with it. Not at all. I read a lot about it, and I've read a lot about it growing up. And like, I do take a lot of time to research a piece before I actually name it and everything. And the names come from the stories, but I feel like if people talk to me about it long enough, they're absolutely astonished. Because I do not want to disrespect anyone's culture in any way. If I'm going to depict your culture, I'm going to do it very respectfully. I'm going to do it carefully as well, because I don't want to mess anything up. I don't want to get anything wrong. You're straight up disrespecting someone's culture if you're going to get it wrong.
No, but I can see how seriously you take that from, as I say, the research that you do about your subjects, the passion that you've got for the textiles, the history, the techniques of the wood blocks, all of those things. And also, you're learning Japanese, you've got a Japanese tutor. So you're trying to, as best you can, integrate as much information. I know what I was going to ask you. Since having the Japanese tutor, is there anything that you've learned about Japanese culture, that perhaps you didn't know that has maybe then translated into the work?
Well, as I said before, it's a very calm, peaceful culture, and it's very mellow and it's very lovely. And when I was learning the language, I realised they've got a lot of sayings over in Japan, where it's like when you first ever meet someone, when you finish the sentence, you say, please be kind to me, or please be good to me. And I realised, I think I had I fell in love with it even more so than I ever have done before. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful language. Everything about it is kind. How you pronounce things as well, you've got to be very kind. And it was always drilled into me, because obviously I'm quite Brummy. So you have to be quite soft-spoken and stuff, and you have to, it's very mellow, and you have to talk to people with respect, and it's a very respectful place. And if anyone can go over there, just be as respectful and kind as possible, because it's beautiful and the people have got beautiful souls. And I've met quite a few Japanese people who just give off this wonderful vibe. It's just great.
And you go for meetups with Japanese friends and all sorts of
I
stuff.
have started.
And even they're surprised about how much you know about Japanese culture, right?
They don't know about geisha culture, really.
So you're educating them?
Yeah, they told me it was dying out. Well, no, they told me the geisha culture's dying out, which is obviously like, it was like a big thing back then, but it's not so much now unless you go to the main geisha districts. But even then, so they're still not really a thing anymore, which is a shame. But yeah, they are very shocked that I know quite a bit, to be honest. They've even been like, oh, I don't even know that.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I think that goes part and part with the fact that you obviously don't want to disrespect a culture. Mm-hmm. You're very passionate about this style, and like you say, it's now becoming more and more your style. Where do you find out? I mean, I don't want to say is it just a Google search, but are these geisha stories?
I have a lot of geisha books.
Okay,
that I've like bought off like Amazon. I've got a lot from Waterstones, stuff like that. I even get them in charity shops. I've got a lot of geisha books that I've got from charity shops. And there's this one book that's like my Bible, and it's literally just stories about geishas, like real geishas that existed. And like, there's notes in it. I've like marked the pages, and I just keep going back to it. And I'll reread chapters, and I'll try and understand more about the culture and more what they do. And like, you know, I don't trust myself sometimes if I've read it right, and I want to get it right constantly. I can't stress enough how I can't get it wrong.
Do you find that balance between the getting that story representation right and then your own creative license to make that a Sophie Rose Walters piece?
Yeah.
Is that a tricky dynamic? You want to try and be as true to the stories as you can, but obviously you still want to make it your own.
Well, this is the thing, like I was reading about the cultures, and especially like the kimonos and what they wear, and it was like, it told me how colourful it was. Like, it like paint a picture for you in the books, like how colourful it actually was, whereas you look at the old style woodblock and you can't tell how colourful it was, because it was all quite mellow and like diluted down. But then it comes back to like how, like, when I obsessed with material, I wanted to make it as colourful as possible, because I actually know how colourful these geishas can be.
Well, the history of going to the material markets with your mum, and your mum being a seamstress and looking at the different types of materials, suddenly you go, oh, okay, they're not quite the muted tones and the single line drawings that thing. These are beautifully coloured. And
well, you have to be very careful with what colours you use, because I've used some colours sometimes and thought, oh God, that doesn't work.
In the sense of an artistic thing, or in a sense of, because the Japanese have colours that is obviously reds.
Red is a very main colour in Japanese, and there's like yellow and like a lot of turquoise and a lot of
Is there any colours that they don't use because it's, I don't know.
I don't think so.
No.
But there's a lot of colours that I've definitely known not to use because we'd seen pictures of geishas and like doing my research. I've known that it doesn't work. But I have done colours before and got rid of it straight away, and I've gone over it, and I've actually got stuff on my Instagram where it's like, this is what it was before. And I've done a post about it saying, look, as an artist, you will realise that things don't work sometimes.
That's all right.
The thing with me is I normally get because of the pen, again, I was taught, draw straight onto a piece of paper, you can't mess up. And that was my thoughts on it. So now when I'm using paints and stuff like that, and I've got to paint back over things, I'm a bit like, I always have to get things right the first time. If I can't get it right the first time, it really bugs me. And I've changed the whole thing.
I mean, because you spoke before about how a lot of the time you can repair when you're doing in ink scribbles and fine lines, but is there points where you go, oh no, I've really messed that up and I have just got to start again?
Yeah. It's been more so with paints, and like, because I use Posca pen on these new ones, it's very hard to because if you go over a panel of the kimono with a Posca pen, you can normally see the pen come through it. So I normally have to paint it over. Then I don't want to paint it over because then it's too bold. So it's there's a lot that's just like, it rattles my brain constantly. Like, I don't want to do it wrong, and it really annoys me when I do it wrong. I need to get it done first time. And a lot of these things with these paintings, I would just straight to it and do it straight away, and I'd get it done. I'd get it right the first time. But some of them,
you're a perfectionist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
you find that difficult?
Yeah. It racks your brain. It drives you mad.
Yeah.
This is the thing, you could be in bed and you're like, no, I need to, like, I'd get up and I'd go to bed like 10 o'clock, get back up, because I couldn't sleep. It was mad. It's genuinely nuts how your mind works as a creative.
And that leads me really nicely onto my next question, really. I mean, you've got this very defined art style now that we've spoken about, but in the lead up to me asking you to do the podcast and us exchanging messages, you sent me a message that literally just said, "Oh, it's a mad thing being an artist." Now, yeah, I get that. It is a mad thing being an artist, but can you elaborate on that a little bit? What do you mean it's a mad thing being an artist? I mean, obviously you've got this obsessive perfectionist, this is coming through, but as I say, can you elaborate a little bit more about what you meant by it's mad being an artist? And I suppose it's probably many facets.
Yeah, I mean, you could go down a rabbit hole with how many different, but I think like I was saying, you can get into your own head about things. It can be quite frustrating sometimes as an artist. I don't know. It just can be really frustrating. It's an emotional thing. You're so attached to your work. You need to get it. You need to do everything right, the same as you did before. But things don't work like that.
Mm.
But I suppose as an artist, you think, no, this is what I'm good at. This is what I should be doing right, and I can't do it right, so why am I not doing it right? But then you get into your own head.
Yeah, do you think it can be a lonely place sometimes being an artist?
100%.
Do you ever struggle with that creative block, or your mental health, or how you define yourself?
Yeah. I mean, I recently had art block for 3 months, which was really bad. I could not think of anything. I went from these 7 months of doing all this colourful stuff and just they were just coming out of me like no tomorrow, all these pieces, to one day being there, nothing going on in my mind. I couldn't even think about how to draw a geisha or how to
And what contributed to that?
Well, you have breakup, you have loss of job, and you'd think because some artists are quite able to get off their arse and just get into their work after stuff like that happen. But there's a lot of the time as well where you just can't. And I've cried about it. I don't cry that often, but I've cried about it where I've literally been thinking to myself, am I going to be able to do this again? And it's quite dramatic in that sense, because you're going to be able to do it again.
But when you're in it and you're going through a breakup and like you say, you lose a job,
it becomes a big dark hole.
Yeah, the last thing you're thinking about is creativity at that point, and at that point. But you're in this big creative block. So how did you get out of it? What did you do? Was it just time's a healer, and then you suddenly felt better to create, or?
I don't think it was time's a healer at all, because I feel like as an artist, you've got to get up and you've got to do something. You've got to So I started drawing again, but I'm only doing studies of Japanese buildings and stuff, and it's just scribbles what my granddad used to do, and I just started thinking about what can I do to get back into it. I don't really want to do my main pieces right now because I can't. I didn't have my stuff still everywhere, from breakup and everything like that. So what can I do in this meantime? And I was thinking about what I could do. I had nothing on me at all, so I just went to Cass Art and I literally bought a little A5 pad, a pen, and that's all I've had. And the past few nights, I've literally been doing about 4 or 5 images at a time and just putting my headphones in and just forgetting. And I don't know how it comes back. I really don't. I cannot tell you how it just comes back again. Because at that point, when I was in a dark hole, I couldn't tell. I'll probably tell you that I'd never be able to do it again.
But I think in terms of muscle memory, you will always be able to draw. But I think the problem is the want to draw, wasn't it? Rather than the desire to be creative, the desire to get all the life issues out of your head. But you're only saying you're a few days into it, but you finding it cathartic, or are you?
I can't stop. I can't stop doing it, and it's great. And I've I had like this epiphany at night after I'd finished my last drawing. I was like, oh my God, I'm out of it. And I felt like crying, but like happy crying, because I was like, oh my God, I'm finally fucking out of this horrible stage where I was like, before it, I was like so on top of it. I was like, I was thriving. And then I just lost it. And it's so upsetting as an artist when we've got so much passion and it goes. And you feel like you've lost your spark, and you feel like you've lost. And considering, like I've just told you earlier in the podcast, academically wise, I couldn't do anything. I can't really do anything else other than that. And then you lose that. You've lost yourself. Shit.
I can completely relate. I went through a breakup and was very much in the same place. And again, luckily, I think I was lucky in the fact that eventually that creativity probably was the thing that sort of saved me, really. It was like I started creating and started putting all the darkness and the weird stuff into creating, and it was that, as I say, that cathartic is, well, I'm pleased to hear you're back and enjoying creating. That's a big plus, because I want to just touch on the fact that you are hugely creative, but yet you're still having to balance, this real life. Art isn't paying your way fully at the moment, is it? You've got to work, you've got to do other things, but what would the sort of goal be for you? Is it for art to be the sole thing that makes, because we've had a little discussion previously about how you actually, as much as you're an amazing and talented artist, you actually really like the behind the scenes stuff and putting people together and organising exhibitions and all those sorts of things. So obviously I don't think you're ever going to stop creating, but where do you see the next sort of couple of years for Sophie Rose Walters? What do you think?
I'm not quite sure. At the moment, I'm very happy with, I've got a lot of like things going into restaurants and stuff at the moment, which that kind of got me out of my hole as well, messaging restaurants and being like, are you interested in this work? And having other restaurants that I know go, this girl's got this work. And like, it's like a lot of like who you know. Mm. And it really like put me on the ball again.
So again, sorry, just to digress again, because I think that's another interesting point. Because obviously, as artists, we all think we should go straight to galleries and straight to this. What restaurants? Can you talk us through what's the deal with that? Do you just contact the restaurant and say, "I've got some amazing artwork that I think would look great in your space"? Are they all Asian restaurants?
Well, I've had I know quite a few restaurant owners in Birmingham, which is always a good start. So they've got a lot of like Asian styled restaurants, and like I basically started putting my artwork in these restaurants, and like then I'd go to another place and I'd knew them, and then like eventually I thought I got the bug for it again, and then I was just like, why am I not emailing people and asking and pushing myself, because you're not doing anything. A lot of people think just sitting at home not engaging with people, you're not going to get anything. Ask. People are scared to ask or you won't get.
And is this after your little bit of creative block? You've just sort of had it sounds like you've had a little bit of a word with yourself and gone, what am I doing?
Well, exactly. Well, it started because I sold a piece that I had in a restaurant, and then I replaced it with another piece in there, and then I just started and I was just thinking to myself, just do it. You can only ask. If they refuse, then you could email 500 people, 2 people could get back to you. There's still 2 people getting back to you. So I just emailed a load of Asian styled restaurants in the city, and my next aim is to email a load of restaurants in London and expand. And I've had a lot of yeses, which is great. And this is my advice to anyone: you can just ask, get yourself out there. Restaurants are looking for artwork all the time. Cafes are looking for artwork all the time.
And I think it's an avenue that artists don't often think about. I think we are often blinded by, we've got to be in the big posh gallery and we've got to be this and but actually, where do people view most of this stuff? It's a very almost niche market that goes to an art gallery specifically. But how many people eat Asian food? Eat millions.
Exactly.
It's delicious.
Exactly. Like it's and like we said, like it's something that people love. I've done markets before, and the amount of people that come up to me and go, "Oh my God, I love Japan. I went to Japan a few years ago, and we're just obsessed with it. We're gonna go again this year." oh, I love that. Oh, that have you got that keyring in that print? Have you got like this print in this size? And like, it's great to see that people love it so much and people actually are taking a focus to it still, because like I said, like, geishas are dying out and it's still something people are absolutely obsessed with and got in their homes. People collect it. It's something that people are always going to want. And it's a beautiful culture.
Yeah, I think that's super interesting. And like you say, it is a beautiful culture. But that's interesting. I'm looking at more from a not necessarily from a subject matter point. So restaurants, and you mentioned then that you've done art markets and things like that. Do you think these are good avenues for aspiring artists? You know, artists that are coming up through the ranks perhaps don't have huge client lists or whatever yet.
Yeah, I mean, I know so many artists and we all do different things and we all do different things that fits us. Like some do markets every weekend and they stick to that. Some do exhibitions all the time and they stick with that because they like the whole atmosphere of it and the environment. That's something I do. I do a lot of exhibitions and I love it. I think it's great.
And what is that? Is that through open calls or?
Open calls. There's actually a website called artjob.com, which is very good if you want to start doing exhibitions. I mean, some of the submissions you have to pay like 20 quid, which is standard, really. You're paying staff that work for free, basically.
In your art career, though, would you say that although you've been creating forever, would you say your art career is still quite new and you're still sort of learning?
Yeah. I believe, like, you know, someone could be 50 and their artwork is still progressing and they're still learning about themselves. That's the beauty of being a creative. You never know what's going to be new for you or old for you, or if you're going to revisit art that you did when you were 18, which is what I've kind of done now with this stuff now. All my market research that I've done throughout my whole life has come into this one piece. I'm using heavy body acrylic like I did with painting. I'm using Posca like I did when I used to work on wood. I'm using line work like I did like when I used to do portraits, I used to do line work. I've put it all together and I've done graffiti art, which is incorporated into it.
No, I think it's great. I think it's so interesting. And like I say, as well as being a talented artist, you've got this element where you enjoy almost like being the middle person, putting people together, trying to organise exhibitions, telling people where they could maybe exhibit or where they can get things printed or this person's great for that frame or, you know, whatever. So do you think there's something within that you'd like to take further? I mean, there's everything, isn't there? Art consultancy and all sorts of things these days. But do you think your passion is still just making and creating?
No, I think that it goes beyond that. I feel like I've done it for that long that I can point people in the right direction, because when I did used to work at the printing place, it was constantly a case of like staff members coming to me and going, this person doesn't know how to start being in exhibitions, or this person doesn't know how to start doing markets, or this person doesn't know what cafe to put their work in, because cafes are great to put your artwork. Like Boston Tea Party, on their website, they've literally got an art section, and it's for all the Boston Tea Parties in the UK, and you can just like submit work stuff, and they'll sell it for you.
How did you learn all this though? You've like
researching. Like I said, you won't be at home doing you won't get what you want unless you read.
And you've got that obsessive personality as well.
Yeah.
Like you said, it's like, I did 14 pictures of a tangerine. I mean, I exaggerate.
Stopping. I'm not. It's like, I don't want to stop. I've got that drive for it. And this is when I had art block. The thing that was so upsetting, the drive when everything went. Couldn't be bothered to even turn my laptop on. But normally I'm on everything possible. Emailing people. Making sure I've got that contact. I mean, I had someone who has a bonsai tree company message me and was like, do you want to work together in the spring? Because I do bonsai markets at like the NEC and stuff like that, because there's a big market for it. Do you want me to put some of your prints out? And I was like, yeah. And then they bought a load of my artwork as well. And it's like this massive, and I found them on the internet and just messaged them. I was like asking them about a bonsai tree. They'd added me on Instagram, and then it just spiraled from there. It's mad. I think you just need to get to know people, and I feel like I do really like to support other artists, and this is why I will happily sit down with an artist who's struggling or not done it before, and I will give them a massive list of emails, websites, cafes, stuff like that. Go into a cafe, give them your art, tell them you're an artist, message them a few days later, follow it up, chase it up. You can only ask. If they don't reply, they don't reply.
Where does that drive come from?
I don't know. I'm just really passionate about this whole creative. See, I love it. I love to look. If you look on my if anyone has me on Instagram, you know that I constantly post people's stuff and I will constantly big up their work. And I don't know. I've just always, my parents have bigged me up so much, and I've always been around people that have bigged me up and made me very aware of my talent. Some people haven't had that growing up, and I want to be the one to go, you're doing amazing today. You're going to get up, you're going to do half a paint. If you're not going to do half a paint, you're going to paint that canvas, and you don't even need to finish it today. Just do something. Like, I wish someone was like that when I was going through like my dark stage of being in this art block. I suppose it's best to kind of leave people when they're in that art. Like, I do understand it completely, but I want nothing more. I feel like we're all in the same boat together and we need to support each other. We're all doing the same thing. We're all thriving for the same thing. Why not share it?
I agree completely. That's what Creative No Island's always about. I've always said Creative No Island is not just about me. Yeah, it's a place for me to experiment. That's why I'm doing a podcast, why I'm talking to other people. Yeah. There's selfish elements where I can go, ooh, I can learn loads of stuff direct from these people if I speak to them. But why would I bother recording them if I didn't want everyone else to do that?
Exactly. You want to make people aware of everyone else, and that's what I want to do. I want people to know about especially my friends, even people I don't know. I just want you to know today that you're doing very, very well, and it's just like I will constantly continue to do it. I find a lot like artists get bigger. Probably shouldn't be saying this, but the more artists get bigger, the more they don't share about other people. But I don't think you should do that.
Well, I agree as well. It's like, for me, there's a photographer that I follow, and his philosophy, and he's got a platform that's all about creativity, and his philosophy is a rising tide floats all boats. If I rise, the people around me are going to rise with me. That's my philosophy.
Yeah. This is why I did collabs. I think it's very important. Like, I've got friends that just do markets who haven't done an exhibition before. And I was like, well, collab with me. And then we can do, and then like once we did that collab, I was like, you take it to your markets, people will be interested in it. And I'll apply us for like exhibitions. And we did RBSA Friends exhibition this year with Claire, who was my collaborator with one of my pieces. And it was something that she'd never experienced before. And I love to push. I'm not a pushy person. I just love to push and see what you can do. And see if you like what I like doing. Like, I've done market, and I don't really do market. I've done that. They're great, yeah, but they're not really me. But I've also tried it because people have pushed me into doing it.
That's the only reason I mention things like art consultancy. I can see your drive, I can see your passion, and you're shaking your head at me now, which is absolutely fine, and I get that. But as I say, do you think that you put as much of that drive and effort into your own art, or do you think you sometimes put a bit more into making sure everyone else is doing?
I think I put it more into what everyone else is doing, like, constantly. I don't know what it is. Maybe it is something that I need to get into. Maybe I do need to be on the advice side more, because...
Maybe not that, but maybe do you need to take some... It's always very easy to give advice than it is to take your own advice. Does that make sense?
Well, of course, it's the same with mental health, isn't it?
Yeah,
like, you're obviously going to, you're going to give someone advice, like, look, get up today, you'll be fine. And you'll be like, what can I take my own advice and go for a run this morning? Like, I've just told this person, I can't be bothered because my head's up my arse, basically. Like,
yeah.
And I feel like that's the same with me. Like, I could give someone all the advice. Like, if you're an abstract artist, like, advise you, like...
But then maybe the hope is that, like, for me, I want others around me to grow. You want others around you to grow. I just hope that someone's looking in on me going, oh, I really want Matt to grow, or someone's looking in on me. That's what I was saying about when
I was in, like, a dark period. I wish, like, someone had gone, come on, you can do it. You can draw. You can do some, let me help you out.
Well, I did ask you to be on a podcast. I think you told me to fuck off. But I've got you here now, so that's the main thing.
Sounds like me.
But that's the thing, you know, we've all got to be in the right space. It's like when I went through my breakup, I shared lots of work that I created at the time, but it was a long time after I'd got my head in the right place after the breakup. I couldn't have shared it when I was in it.
Oh, of course.
When you're in a dark place, sometimes, it's a very strange one, but sometimes it's, you know, it sounds like you come out the other side, which is brilliant, and you are foot to the floor, which is amazing. No, but that's amazing because that's inspiring for me, because I mean, we're sat in my office and you're looking at to-do lists on my wall and things like that, and
they're very long.
Well, I've got a lot of goals. What can I say? But it's nice to know that there's other people that have got that same motivation, or they're trying to lift people other up, or they're trying to do these.
Yeah.
Because, like you say, we are all trying to just get to living a happier life, a more enriched life, a more creative, artistic life, whatever that is, and whatever goal that is, we're all trying to work to. We're all just trying to get there, and a lot of the time we don't know how to get there. So speaking to people that are doing the same thing or trying to get there,
100%, because. Like, I've talked to artists that are about 20 years older than me who have no idea what they're doing, and I've ended up helping them and putting them into a really good position, like, with their practice and stuff, because of, like, printing and, like, getting them into, like, exhibitions and stuff and pointing them in the right... They've ended up in the same exhibitions as me because I've, like, pointed them in the... And they've never done that before. And it's, like, to see, like, you see, like, how happy they are that they've got to that point, because before that, they had no clue where to look, what galleries... I mean, you could Google the galleries, but you're not going to know. I mean, I've probably got more information about them than they have. And just that little push to someone, it's just like...
But a lot of times, I think, like you say, artists, and there are gatekeepers. It's like, oh, I'm not going to give that person this gallery name because their work might get into this show and mine won't, and all this.
There's loads. There's people who...
ego.
There's definitely a lot of people that won't, because there's a lot of, like, jealousy on the fact that they do the same practice. And like you said, like, I don't want their work in there because I want my work in there. And because, like, obviously you get, like, the people picking the work. What about if your work gets in and theirs doesn't? And there's a lot of that. And I don't think there should be any of that, because I will support anyone and everyone. But why does anyone deserve that? We need to celebrate each other, because we're all, like, you know, at a point we're hanging by a thread and we just really want to give most of the time. Mental health, artist-wise, whatever, like, it's just really, like, we need to be there for each other right now. You can't afford to be a jealous person in this industry. You need to grow up and get past it.
I think it just goes, you know, just don't be a dick, be a nice person, and hopefully there's something along the karmic value route of all of that.
I've had friends sell things for like $2,000 a piece, and I'm selling things at 20 quid a piece. And sometimes I'm not selling at all and they're thriving, and I'm not going to be there going, well, like, me and my friend did a market together, and she sold 4 abstract pieces, and I was there to hype her up. I was there to go, I was even going, let me wrap it for you while you talk to the customer. And I was like, I don't get this point. I'm so buzzing for this person that they're doing so well. Why can't you receive that from other people? Why is it so hard? There's no jealousy or bitterness in this game. We are all here together doing the same thing, whether you're selling stuff for $2,000 or selling stuff for 50 quid. We need to be together. I don't understand it. I just don't understand the, like, bitterness in it. Like, why?
No, it's a strange one, isn't it? But I guess, God, we're trying to answer. We're both sat here going, oh, we want everyone to win, but we're trying to answer questions for the dickheads that don't. So exactly. I can't answer that. I don't know why. I guess ego. I want to be perceived as being better than that other person, maybe. But like you say, you know, we're two people that seem to want as many people to win as possible, and hopefully they take us on the route. If they win, they lift. As I say, rising tide floats all boats. You know, we've all got potential to win, and I think it's important, like you say, building that sense of community, and people can come to someone else for a bit of advice who's maybe done something different or whatever. That's what this podcast is.
Yeah, I'm happily open for people to go as well and look at my pieces and go, well, that's great, but this looks like shit. I'm happy to accept criticism, which is a big thing that some artists can't handle, which is fine, because, like, a lot of us can't handle criticism. I admire and I welcome the criticism, and I want to know what I can do. But because a lot of people, you get, like, non-creatives tell you about your work sometimes, but sometimes they've got a point. And it's like, well, yeah, I could have done it different. I could have done it that colour would have looked nice. We need to be more accepting of that as well. And, like, you need to unclench your arse a bit and just be like, yeah, okay, someone's told me something about my work that could potentially do better. And a lot of people have told you the same thing. So why not take that advice and
as long as that that criticism is constructive, I think, yes, we've got to take it. If someone comes up and just says that shit and leaves it at that, that's fucking bullshit.
Mic drop.
Yeah, mic drop. Yeah, no. Sophie, this has been great. I've got a couple of things that I wouldn't mind asking at the end of the podcast recording. Do you have an inspiring quote at all from anybody, or one of your own, or something that's just maybe given you a bit of inspiration? I mean, maybe you haven't, but something that's given you a bit of inspiration on your journey?
I haven't got a quote, no, but I've got like some good advice, if everyone...
Go, yeah. I mean, as I say, advice is what we're here for. We want everyone to take as much as they can from this, so go.
Okay, so I think it's like, don't take no or not a response as a reason, as a setback, or to stop creating, because I feel like you're not going to get anywhere if you're just taking it badly, taking rejection badly and stuff. I feel like you need to keep persisting, keep emailing people, keep asking people for stuff, keep asking for advice, meet up with artists and ask if you can go for coffees with them. Do stuff, like, don't take no as an answer. Keep chasing up the emails. If they don't reply, email them again a few days later. If they don't reply, then that's a no and that's a rejection. But don't see it as a rejection. See it as like a drive. Message someone else. Do better. Do bigger things. It doesn't matter. Just continue.
Be braver.
Yeah, be braver.
I like that.
It's fine.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
No, but that's great advice. As I say, it doesn't always have to be some, poetic quote from someone who's 100 years old. I think that's even better.
Yeah.
Be brave. Go for it. Don't take the no's as rejections.
It's not a rejection. Just think it's not a rejection.
Just
Every rejection, it's just a drive to do better, to be braver, be more confident in your work. Just do it. It's fine. And if you're emailing as well, you can't see them. So it's alright if they give you some shit back. Just oh well.
I love that, Sophie. That's brilliant. And the final thing, I think I know who you're going to suggest, but I'm never quite sure on these things. But can you suggest someone in your network who you think would be a really interesting guest to come on the Creative No One podcast?
I think Claire Garrett should come on, to be honest.
And this is who you've been talking about, Claire, who you've done your collaborations.
Yeah, Claire, who would do the I Want to Push Her. I'm going to push her. She's doing a podcast now. She's doing it.
I love it. Well, she kind of has to say yes as well. So, yeah. I mean, I'm sure she's not going to have much choice with you bullying her, though, Sophie. But no, that'd be great. And and Claire's an abstract artist, right?
Yeah, Claire's an abstract artist, sure.
Right, okay.
Yeah, she works with acrylics.
Cool. Well, all I've got to say then now is, Sophie, thank you for coming and chatting.
You're welcome.
And you've got some wonderful advice in there, and I love your boldness. I love your bravery.
Thank you.
I'm glad you've recovered from your little creative block, because
a little episode.
Well, no, but like you say, as creators, I think we all go through those blocks, and trying to navigate through those blocks and realizing that it's not the end; it's just a little blip. And hearing your story about that and understanding it, and you niching down into the Japanese art and the styles of that, man, you are super knowledgeable. It's a really interesting subject, and I suggest that everyone goes and checks out Sophie's work. So where can people find you? Where can people come and follow you?
You can follow me on Instagram, or you can add me on Facebook, but probably best to follow me on Instagram. I'll just check the notes for my name because it's a bit long.
I'll add all of Sophie's links to her work and her Instagram in the show notes. But for now, Sophie, thank you again for taking the time to come and speak to me. It's been super interesting. And fingers crossed Claire says yes. And good luck.
She will, I'll force her. Thank you.
Good luck with everything that's going on in the future, Sophie. It's wicked. Thank you for listening to the Creative No Land podcast. If you found anything inspiring or useful in this episode, please consider subscribing or maybe sharing the episode with a friend. Anything you can do to help promote and support Creative Novaland is so beneficial, and I really appreciate it. Check out the website and sign up to the newsletter to be the first to know of everything that's going on here in Creative Novaland. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, explore, inspire, and create.
Better to have a short life that is full of what you like doing than a long life spent in a miserable way. And so, therefore, it's so important to consider this question: what do I desire?